You can do it.
Oh,
You have the power.
I have taken the power.
All right.
Yeah.
So, you want to do the intro?
I might as well. Everyone's watching it. I'm sure they are. Live from Austin, Texas. This is the Plutopia News Network Happy Hour, and we're waiting our guest who we'll introduce when he shows. The not ready for cable news players are here. Me old, what's his name? Over there is Maggie Duvall, and the guy with the controls, John Lebkowski.
Yes, and I will just say that there is a chance that our guest will not make it because he does have the flu, and we certainly told him that if he didn't feel like it, not to try to come. But we have other things we can talk about tonight, so I think we will be just fine.
Yes, we are fine.
Well, you don't have anything to talk about? Well, I think
I have something to share.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Maggie has something.
Just for grins, we've had our friend Jeannie Mosier on our show before, or we interviewed her, and we're going to have her as our post-election guest on the 5th, correct? I believe.
Indeed.
And she has been, so Jeannie is, she was a CIA analyst. She has 2 Ivy League degrees. She's a force of nature in her town, and she's an amazing, very analytical astrologer, I would put it. And so every day she has been comparing various candidates to the chart of the Constitution of the United States, that kind of thing. And this is related to the debate tonight. She posted this today, and if you don't mind, I'll read it because I thought it was pretty interesting. So she said, so let's look at the debate today, the debate day, and how the energy pattern of the night fits both candidates. It's a strongly Earth day with a Capricorn moon and a string of conjunctions with all our Capricorn planets. Not good for Trump, who has no planets in Earth and is not going to want to talk about this Capricorn year and all the issues and limitations we have faced. Also not good for Trump, should there be a need to mute the mics. Biden is more serious, disciplined, and able to talk about actual issues and concerns. But the biggest influence is the sun moving into Scorpio just an hour before the debate begins, so right now. Joe Biden has 4 planets in Scorpio, and this energy will stimulate both his hidden power, but more importantly, his healing qualities. He is able to show emotion, Trump is not. What Trump will do with the Scorpio energy is go for exposing the secrets, especially if they are lies. When Trump attacks Biden's son, the reaction we will see from Biden is a loving father defending his admittedly damaged son with tears in his eyes. My favorite legend about Scorpio is how Hercules overcame the 9-headed Hydra by lifting it from the swamp and holding it up to the light. We will see tonight
Deja vu.
who is light and who is darkness, who is really in the swamp, regardless of the twisted slogans we hear. With Mercury still in retrograde, there is no guarantee that Trump will not explode and walk out. So there you go.
And Mercury is in retrograde until election day, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So that lined up oddly. Do they plan that?
Yeah.
Is that supposed to happen? Wow.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting, that last bit about, I was kind of hoping that he would explode and walk out. That would be interesting. So there you go.
He has done that recently. So
Well, I read my own chart. Speaking for the Geminis, I spoke with myself, both of us, and we decided, that whole swamp thing, we're going to introduce some alligators into the swamp. I think that's the real cure for that swamp thing.
Yes.
Swamp Thing was actually a pretty good comic book.
Yes.
And probably ripe for revival.
Yeah. What era?
Swamp Thing. We're going to reclaim Swamp Thing.
Tell everybody, John, what era that was. What
Okay, I'm going to guess. I would have to look to be sure, but it was around when I was still reading comic books, which was probably the 60s.
Mm.
Yep.
I'm guessing that it appeared then, and they've made a couple of Swamp Thing movies, one of which had Adrienne Barbeau in it, by the way.
Mhm, mhm. Yes,
She was
indeed.
Anyway,
for a while.
so tonight, Gary Gach was going to be here, and he hadn't made it. And Gary, we hope that you're feeling better and getting well, because we certainly wouldn't want to have the flu ourselves right now, especially COVID era flu, which I guess is probably kind of a special
double
kind of
whammy
flu
there.
to have. Susie is not here yet, but I think she's on her way. But anyway, Gary and I were going to talk a bit tonight about mindfulness as a tool for getting through the levels of anxiety that many of us are experiencing right now. And one of the most significant problems that we all face right now is the chattering of the voices in our head. And many of those voices are being fed and energized by.
Hold on, let me make sure I'm on here.
Oh, there she is. Hey,
Hey,
Susie.
it was a chattering of the voices in your head, John.
Yeah,
And it
exactly.
turned out to
I
be
mentioned the
Susie.
chattering of the voices in my head, and then there was Susie.
Well,
So, Susie, I'm just talking a little bit about
Guys,
mindfulness, but what I was actually saying is that, so what happens is that a lot of what we call thinking, which is just voices in our head having dialogue, that sort of thing, just words appearing in our heads. We pick those up. It's a socially constructed thing, and we get those things over time from all kinds of sources, all the way back to when we're just little kids learning language. And a lot of those voices in our head are not very friendly and are not helping us along very well. And what happens to the voices in your head when you're exposed to a 24/7 input of news from cable news and from the internet and from all the possible sources we have? Those are the main ones. I also like radio, talk radio, and that sort of thing. That's feeding our heads in a big way. And also what's happened to what we traditionally called news is that it's more and more just opinion.
Mhm.
So we're being filled full of opinions, divisive opinions, and they're coming from sources that we're almost like we're addicted to them. Oh, here comes Gary.
Gary,
Hey,
yay.
Gary.
there he
Gary.
is.
We're happy to see you. Do you have audio?
Oh, there it is.
Audio, can you hear me?
Certainly.
Do you want to sing
all
something
right.
to us? Or hey, Gary, I hope you're feeling well.
Yeah, I'm passing for human.
Oh, excellent.
I've tried that.
Sorry,
and
I'm
it
late.
just didn't take.
Oh, it's fine. I thought maybe you weren't going to come because you were ill, but we're happy you made it.
Thank you. Well,
Glad you're feeling
long
better.
session with a doctor on Zoom, and
Well, you look pretty chipper.
thank you.
So I was just, I know we were going to talk a bit about mindfulness tonight, especially right now while things are crazy. And I was just talking about the process that people go through of, I mean, when you learn language, really what you're doing is you're getting voices in your head, and those voices expand and multiply as you grow, as you get older and older. And then I was talking about how right now those voices are being fed by 24/7 news cycles on cable news and the internet and talk radio and so forth. And, you know, the result of that is that we have kind of a cacophony in our heads, and we have like a lot of divisive dialogue going on, and it's creating, and also that news is mostly opinion now and not really news. So people have more opinions than facts.
Yep, yep.
And they're starting to have, I mean, we have these conflicts that are going on, which are really just, you know, the voices in your head are talking to the voices in somebody else's head. And where I was going with that is that the way to get kind of real again is to get behind those voices, or to put those voices into a context where you understand that they're just voices. Does that sound right?
Good. Yeah. I've noticed a certain amount of roof brain chatter that just doesn't go when I meditate, and I notice it lately. It's just been little fragments. I don't hear whole sentences, you know, just, and I sometimes try to decipher them later, but it's tricky when we identify the voices because we don't really have a stable self to speak of. You know, provisionally, where are we in the moment, you know, you might call them tapes, pre-recorded tapes, or our own brain's ability to secrete this kind of roof brain chatter. It's good for me to just remember that the breath is slower than the chatter. I just take a breath slowly. I just whatever it is through my nostrils and let it out, usually with my tongue in the roof of my mouth. And I do this a couple of times. I compare the rapidity of the voices and appreciate that with the sound off, it's a lot slower and more spacious and less, you know, like a speed monkey. You know?
So when you,
I don't know if that sense.
well, when you say pause, breathe, smile, which is the title of your last book, that's the pause, right?
Well, when I take a breath, right? I mean, I'm breathing 21,000 times a day. But to be aware means to have a space of some sort, this kind of shift. Sometimes it's actually stopping, completely dropping everything, letting go of whatever I was doing in order to be fully present to being breathing. Pause, stop, have to do with a sense, what is our intention? You know, is my intention to get from here to there in order to gain some goal that I'm fixed on, like some obsessive attainment that I want? And if I don't get it, I'm not going to be happy. And if I get it, I'm going to be happy for the rest. Or is my intention to be fully alive, fully open to possibilities there are in any moment? And so that's a sense of a kind of interaction, if you will. We make that intentional, we make it conscious. And since it isn't normally conscious, we have to train ourselves, and that takes, you know, I have to pause to take a conscious breath. And so it's a way of putting it in action and having a ability to to know that when I'm going to recognize that I have an intention, a motivation, that allows me much more room to move. You know, having a desire, or craving, or being pushed along by an aversion. I don't like this. I want to get it, or just sort of going through life, you know, without any sense of what am I doing, and still, you know, doing stuff. Am I being coherent yet?
Oh,
Yeah, when you're saying that, Gary, like I was having this experience of when it's not with that intentional, everything in my life feels constricted and contracted. But with the intentional, there's like an opening, and it's like my chest opens, I can breathe more, and I find myself every day think, you know, wait, I just stopped breathing. And when I just take the time to just breathe again, all of a sudden everything opens back up again. That constriction goes away.
yeah. One of the things I've noticed is that, you know, it's good to meditate first thing in the morning, but I often don't. Um, and what often happens is that I'm drawn over to this computer or one of my computers. And the next thing I know, I've taken a peek at social media. I've looked at Facebook, or I've looked at Twitter, or probably both. And I've been drawn into conversations, and those conversations are often dueling conversations. Right now, there's a lot of energy that's just kind of going into contention about the election, the upcoming election. And if I let that go for a while, I find it's very hard. Like when I sit to meditate, I'm so unsettled, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that unsettling, you know, I'm really trying to learn how to get settled when I'm unsettled. You know what I mean? Like
Well, how did you get unsettled? You dove into this arena of dueling,
yeah,
and in doing your, do you know that by doing this, you're going to enter to a duel, and if you could make the meditation the first thing you do, then when you go into the arena of dueling, you see it differently, and
exactly.
see your own agency differently.
And approach it in an entirely different way. Really.
Yeah, you know, I'll give you an example. I don't drive, but you know, you see this a lot. You're driving along, and then somebody slams on the horn, and the passenger says, "Why did you do that? Did you see that woman? She cut me off, right? But she didn't cut me off. She took a left. She didn't really know that I was there. She, you know, or if she did, she just didn't gauge it, and it wasn't intentional. It wasn't about me, you know." And to have a perspective that's seeing things as they are without the attachment, you know, of that this is who I am and this is what I'm about. It all means. Just to have that, even if you're in this situation of dueling, if it's possible, people can get the vibe. You know, that there's something in the duels kind of just watching it like a movie, without, you know. Dueling is a very interesting word you use, because for some reason I found myself reviewing on YouTube Scott movie.
Hey, Gary, before you continue, I'm going to suggest that you go ahead and switch off your video.
Yeah, am I
Because
breaking up?
you're breaking up a little bit, and
I've been
maybe
breaking up all day.
breaking up
No,
is
I
hard to
mean,
do.
breaking up to do.
I think that'll help. Yeah. So I'm sorry for
give it a-
interrupting, but
No, give it a try.
Can somebody define dual for me?
well, I mean, when I said dual, I just meant conflict. I just meant
Okay, I thought you were like doula. I had the whole thing wrong.
yeah. When I was talking about dual, well, it could mean dual
like,
too,
what is
like
that?
in
Does that
dual versus non-dual. But no, DUEL is what I was thinking
Okay,
about.
I do know what that word means, actually. Thank you.
We've all seen Hamilton.
I have not.
Oh, you haven't?
I have not.
No.
I have not either.
You guys are in for a treat.
I saw the Book of
No,
Mormon.
I'm not going to say it.
Really?
What's that?
What?
Why aren't you going to see Hamilton?
I kind of go along with Ishmael Reed's read of it. You know Ishmael Reed?
Yeah.
He mounted his own play, kind of presenting what got left out of Hamilton. But I don't know if I want to go there, you know. What I was kind of noticing that Lee, just the past 2 days, I'm on YouTube and I'm rewatching a film I saw when it came out. And I really don't know how I picked on it, but it's Ridley Scott's first movie, The Lists, which is a marvelous movie. It's just holds up so well. And it's about, it's based on a true story of these two men, Napoleonic era soldiers, and one has to go and tell the other that, you know, he's been told that he has to tell this other guy that he can't do something. And the other guy takes and he says, saber, draws out his saber. You know, and this whole bit about art and guys with their furs, and they keep running into each other throughout the moving wallpaper of life in this, the Napoleonic Wars. And they do sabers, they do swords. Whenever they see each other, you know, duel. and it's quite well done. The dueling scenes, especially. And I think that's sort of what I'm kind of, I don't know why I picked up on it, but I'm comparing it to the debates, the run up to the election, this whole sense of what is honor, what is honorable, what is not honorable, the sound of the clanging of the metal on metal. And at some level, kind of grandiose, kind of meaninglessness of this kind of spooky drama. You know, that it's divorced from what it was initially was about, and it's these two opposing people. And there's one where they're just so excited, trying to duel each other with these enormous swords that they both collapse on each other, and the crowd has to take them apart because the duel is over. They just are too tired.
Oh, that just gives me an idea. I mean, they should just hand a sword to Donald Trump and a sword to Joe Biden and let them have at it.
Or pistols at 20 paces. But
or dildos. I don't know why I
Well,
thought of that.
that lowered the level a bit.
Sorry.
Well, Gary, you were talking about meditating before going out into the duel, and
Yeah.
I actually had some useful training of that when I first moved to Berkeley in the early 70s, and before I hired as an editor at Zodiac News Service in San Francisco, I was freelancing.
Yeah.
And it was a
Yeah.
very exciting time. I mean, I was covering, demonstrations and riots and lockdowns on at the UC campus, things like that, and a lot of political stuff. And my friend, who was a very well-trained nurse from New York, who finally got fed up in New York and came down to Berkeley to work with the free clinic and with other, people-oriented medical projects, noticed that I was just, going nuts. I always talked about how I had, crazy monkeys in my head and they were all rabid. And she kind of spotted
Yeah.
that and introduced me to meditation. And
Oh.
I had a whole wrong concept. I thought it was going to just make me a guy that's just going to sit in the corner all day and not do anything. And she said, no,
Right.
you go out to do what you have to do, but you do it in a better frame of mind. And I questioned that, but she got
Yeah.
me started on that. And I would do it before I had to go out and into the craziness. And I realized I had a lot more clarity and purpose, and not, the crazy monkeys were less rabid when I was out there. And that was a valuable lesson. You don't have to just, meditate your life away. You can meditate and then go and do your life better.
Yeah. Well, meditation is to me formal and informal. I study under a meditation teacher whose name is One Action. That's his adopted name. He's a Vietnamese Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich means venerable, and Nhan means one action. Me, like what Zazen means is like it's all meditation. The word Zen is meditation, and Zazen is where you sit down. You sit meditation down on a cushion, but it didn't start on the cushion. It doesn't end on the cushion. It's like it's all meditation. And when we have an opportunity to see if it's possible to just be and not do, and then connect with our, as you said, our clarity, our insight, our compassion, our empathy, our ability to make wise, insightful actions that are going to influence others. Um, we can draw upon the formal meditation as kind of a well, but it's always there. If I'm feeling linen and noticing the freshness of the sheets as I'm doing it, if I'm washing a cup, noticing the fragrance of the detergent and the movement of my hand around the lip of the cup. Whatever it is, taking a shit, walking from the door to the car, writing postcard, no phone banking. The idea that there's some things that are meditation, some things that are not, is already a kind of a dualistic, everything's separate. On the assumption that we already know how to do this. We're born human beings, my God, which are, for all of our flaws, we have tremendous potential for one thing. If we sometimes just look at a cat who's doing nothing, yawning because he knows there's nothing to do, we can kind of remember our true nature of, capable of greatness and and compassionate action. I guess, Scoop, if I could just, add one thing, is that people who think of meditation as, yeah, I did at some point, as something you sit in the corner and you're not doing anything, don't understand that if it's not put into action, it's kind of meaningless. That at the end of the day, all I have are my actions. And anything that are like artifacts of my actions are just that. They're kind of shadows. Right? Does that kind of jibe with the vibe you got when the gal took you out of Zodiac News and to your ability, your mind, spacious?
Yeah, basically, yeah, this was before I started at Zodiac News. So being a freelancer was just really crazy because you didn't get paid unless you found some big story to cover, and I was just relentless to the point of being stupid. And she was able to save me from that, from calming down and focusing on what's really important. And by meditation, I found that was helping, because I was just starting the day with 14 cups of coffee and run out and jump into a demonstration somewhere at People's Park in Berkeley, and that wasn't a good start to the day, because it usually ended up going downhill fast.
Right.
Yeah, I think we create a lot of struggle within ourselves. And part of it is that we just assume that what we're thinking is some kind of real thing. And we're just kind of chugging along with it. And to me, one of the real values of meditation is that the more you do it, the more you realize that those thoughts are just secretions from your brain that, in a sense, they're real, but in a sense, they're not real. In a sense, it's just an illusory thing. And, when you're thinking something about the future, about, oh my gosh, tomorrow I may, fall off the cliff or something like that.
Right.
And, maybe, but maybe not. But, if you can get into the present and into what's in front of you, and if you can discipline your attention, which is part of it, then all of that stuff that creates anxiety about the future or about the past, about something you did in the past, all of those things kind of go away, and you're just where you are. And incidentally, one of the things I've been very interested in studying lately is shikantaza, which is a form of meditation that's just sitting, not even following the breath, but just sitting.
Yeah. Katagiri Roshi showed me shikantaza in, I don't know, 1960, what was it, 7? And I was like, this is all you do? Well, simple ain't easy. You're sitting just to sit. It's not meditation in a way, because meditation compared to task is an extra head of your head, right? Is that how it feels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
have a question. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's also hard to teach or to explain to people, because it's like, you're really just saying, don't do anything. But really, you're not doing anything, but you're doing it with real intensity. You're not doing it with real intensity. You're doing not doing, and you're doing not doing intensely.
I tested positively for the negative, which means I'm positively negative.
Good one.
So you were saying something, Gary?
I just wonder if we can take this segment that we've established and move it out into and on between now and this fateful moment, which I think is not going to be exactly, I don't know, it might not, but it begin or end with election, whatever happens. Can we find ways of skillfully being present to the dueling without, getting distracted by the gladiator spectacle or the what I always wonder is at the end of the soccer match or the football game or the election, why is it that the so-called losing side doesn't thank the so-called winning side? Or rather, why doesn't the winning side thank the losing side? Because if the losing side didn't lose, the winner couldn't have won.
It's a good
But no,
point.
they'll say, "Oh, you did a good, so and so had a good fight, or they were good." You just see one side totally dejected and one side cheering, and it, to me, re-emphasizes this sense of duel.
Yeah,
You can't have a winner without a loser, right? If that's the game you're going to play.
Another thing that I've been thinking about is I've been trying to find compassion for Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
I believe is a very damaged person who is in a significant amount of pain. And it's hard because, we have issues with Donald Trump. And, it's hard not to think of him as kind of an evil character in many ways.
Yeah, I know people who absolutely will refuse. This is their point of, no, it's the Mendoza line. They won't go past this point. And their hatred of Trump is unarguable. Norman Fisher, a Zen master, had a great kind of comment about him, that here is this kind of a nothing guy who gets into a lot of debt, and he just keeps bailing himself out of his debt with all of these amazing, he's got $1 billion in debt, and he has these amazing ways of keeping the wolves from the door. It's got the White House to help him in his, fantasy, whatever it is. And there's a sense of, realizing who he really is. When I see him stumbling on the stairs of the airplane, or able to, hold a glass of water with one hand, and this is an old guy. This is an old man who's like,
And I think the difficulty in this question of feeling compassion for him is that he has absolutely zero compassion for anyone, zero empathy. And, you can see that in everything that he does. But at the same time, it is important for us, for our own sake and for the sake of, the bigger world, to find our way to compassion in a real sort of universal way. And I struggle with that. I mean, I find it very hard to feel compassion for him in particular. And, but I know, you talked about people's hatred for him. Also that people who are on the other side of the political fence feel that hatred for Democrats or Joe Biden or libtards, as they call them, or whatever. And that is the most destructive thing, And how how do we undo all of that? How do we undo this sort of great divisive, this polarization, this hatred that is really not, it's tearing the country apart, and it's tearing people as individuals apart.
Yeah.
I
What
want
do
you
you
to
think?
fix that, Gary. Sorry.
What do you think about how to
Well, Gary,
bring?
my approach on that, if anyone has paid attention to the stuff that I do on social media or whatever, I generally don't take the let's go beat him up and throw him in a ditch or something. I fight with humor. I find that humor is a much better weapon. You're making people laugh at the evil one, if he is an evil one. But I found that making light of the sins in a way that people understand that it's wrong, but it didn't say, let's all, get an axe and go get him. That's not good. But if you can, I actually learned that from my days when I used to review records and concerts, for Zodiac News. And I would go to these things, and the worst review you can give to a person is not writing up something horrible. It's not right at all.
Yeah, lukewarm review is worse than a bad review or a really good review.
And no review is even worse. And that's what I did. I always refused to do those. I would say something positive, but if they sucked, I just put it on the spike and move on to something else that didn't suck. And I found that's a good way to approach things. Attacking people and being negative constantly. It's not healthy for you as well.
Well, another thing that I think about, or a kind of a contemplation I do, is, when you see children and just people enjoying one another, there's kind of a radiance and a light, and there's all this love. And then I don't see that in people like Trump or, so many people in my life and my family line, everything. I feel this deep sadness that they have probably never experienced that kind of joy before. And then I think about how far the line goes back from, just like what created this ground of being for these people to see the world through these lenses that just is so disconnected, in my opinion, from life and beauty and joy and community. Having experienced all of that personally, I can't imagine being that way. And that brings up a lot of compassion in me. So that's one thing that I do to try to grapple with that. It's not excusing the behavior. It's just like, what would their lives be like if all that didn't exist in their life? What if they had been seen or acknowledged or heard? I read Mary Trump's book and I was like, okay, yeah, that's pretty clear. So that's one thing I do.
I find this interesting because in a number of ways. One is it builds upon what Joe's saying about, I'm going to be depressed if I get sucked into the past. Just, reviewing the past is me depressed. And if I keep thinking about the future, I'm going to be anxious and fearful. And if I'm in the moment without attachment or judgment or, extra stuff available to me, it's the only place where life is ever available to us. But, and that plus, it's possible to do this work. It's training to bring forth our compassion, our empathy, our ability to, without judgment, that someone is way, just like me. But, you know, there, but for fortune. And that's, I think, an under-recognized, underrated aspect of, you know, goes under the umbrella of meditation, that people think that you're detached from the world in this bubble, this ice cave of selflessness, or it kind of work. Well, like two examples that are common, I guess, for people in the on this path is one is metta meditation, where you're nourishing the warm, tender feeling you have innately, and then you kind of titrate it through various a spectrum, because it's sometimes too hard in and of itself, and you know, meditate, giving the various forms of loving kindness toward yourself, towards close friends and family, and then a neutral person that we see every day that we don't really ever connect with on a first name basis. And the fourth is the difficult person. And you don't start with president of the States, but it's hard to come to the place the bully or the gaslighter or whoever it is as capable of the same feelings we have for ourselves. And the reverse, and you expand it to, you know, all the people in the Plutopia News Network, all the people in Austin, all the people in Texas, all the people in America, the whole planet, all beings, the galaxies. Heart, it's mind expanding. The other one is the reverse of that in a way. It's called Tonglen. Have you heard of that? Instead of the Tonglen, instead of the usual idea is, you know, you breathe in the clear air and you breathe out the toxins, which is what we do in breathing. And Tonglen, you visualize breathing in all the toxic, foul, smelly, dark, smoky gunk, and you breathe it into your heart, where when it touches your heart, it separates, and you breathe out the light that comes from taking on the suffering and transforming it. So what metta or both, these are really good training practices, you know, for, I guess you could call it conscious evolution. My friend Scoop Nisker, who knows radio personality, now a meditation buff, he says
the other Scoop.
Yeah, Scoop 2, number 2. Scooper says mindfulness is the opposable thumb of consciousness. You know, you see this totally unevolved situation, and you recognize that the player are all capable, you know, if they take off their knee pads and shoulder pads and blinders and stereotypes of being evolved human beings, but it ain't easy.
When you asked me earlier what I would suggest, one of the things I thought about was Tonglen practice, which I've done before, and I find it's challenging, you know, to do it and to do it right. But it's it has a powerful effect, really. I knew someone who was he had been very sick. He had actually, you know, he'd had a heart attack and he died on the operating table. Yeah, but they brought him back, you know, one of those situations. And there was some oxygen deprivation, which caused him to have some limitations, and his his recovery was difficult and so forth. And he just embraced Tonglen in a big way. And it had an amazing effect on him, just an amazing effect. I think it's a great practice. And it might be worth doing during the debate tonight. Those guys are going to be suffering up there. Breathe it in. Breathe out joy. Wouldn't it be great if Trump and Biden took the stage tonight and were just completely joyful and hugged each other? Well, they can't hug each other. They're socially distancing. But, or did air hugs. And just had a nice conversation and were completely cool with each other. I don't think that's going to happen, but it would be nice.
Yeah, if they waved nicely, I would be surprised. I'm expecting the glare of death.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes left, and 5 minutes from now, the debate starts. So, any concluding thoughts, Gary?
Oh, no. This is to be continued for.
So what's everybody taking to the debates for snack food? Is it popcorn or? I'm taking my favorite, which is yogurt with ground up Doritos nacho cheese chips in it. That tends to send me in both directions.
I'm just going to take something in a paper bag so I can breathe in and out.
Yeah, you may need that paper bag too. It's like on the airlines.
Yeah, I
just
might
in
have to
case.
vomit as soon as he opens his mouth.
Just make sure you got some nitrous oxide in there. You'll be okay.
I think I have plenty of drugs.
How about you, Maggie? Are you going to watch the debate?
Yeah. Even though it's, I always have a visceral response. It's just difficult for me to hear a certain person speak. Just feels like a psychic assault. But I think it's I'm trying to be in the world but not of it. So I think instead of hiding from it, I want to be aware, but just practice. I want to practice being as present as possible in advance of the next couple of weeks. That's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot is I've been noticing within myself and with interactions with friends, there's a testiness and there's a lot of assumptions going on. Speaking of the monkey mind going crazy, all the squirrel monkeys making up all the stories about, oh, you said this thing, so you must believe that, or whatever. And so I'm just trying to do what I can to disconnect from that kind of reactive behavior and just be as aware and present as possible. And what I wanted to note something, the gift that both COVID and Trump, I feel, have given me is that I've slowed down considerably, and I've gone into a space of getting out of the kind of goal mindset and more like enjoying my work, even if it takes longer. And I seem to be I'm starting to convince clients too of this. They're starting to, instead of like, oh my gosh, we have to get this thing launched like right now. And it's like, well, sometimes that's not the right time. What would it look like if we let this breathe a little bit?
Yeah.
So that's been a really interesting experience I've had, that more and more people, it's less of this like, must get it done, and more like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Let's sleep on it. Let's
Yeah.
see what new ideas bubble up overnight. I'm like, wait a minute, you're my clients and you're talking like this. It's like, it's
Well, I
not
never
cool
thought to take
anymore.
that approach ever. You know,
Yeah, I'm going to be doing. I have a friend that does the political equivalent of sports booking. He's a sports bookie,
Okay.
not well, political bookie. And
Yeah.
I've got $50 on at some time Trump yelling emails. So I'm hoping I'll get my money's worth.
Oh yeah. There's got to
Well,
be a
we-
bingo card.
Well, yeah, I play debate bingo too.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm only missing. He hadn't yelled Benghazi, so I guess that's dated.
Yeah. No, I don't think I don't think he can pronounce that.
Well, I'm interested in the Twitter hack that happened, and like the most obvious password he could possibly use was something like, like some great MAGA 2020
Oh my
explanation or something
God.
like that. Some Danish kid like broke into his Twitter last week. So
That's
I'm like,
brilliant.
I'm waiting for the, but her emails, So,
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
he blamed something on her. Just the other day, he said, no, it wasn't. Oh, the mic cut out during his rally. And he said, it wasn't Sleepy Joe. It was Crooked Hillary.
oh man, we are actually at the end of our rope. No, we are at the end of our hour. So Gary, thanks so much for coming. This has been a great conversation.
Gosh, it has. Thanks for getting me to be part.
And thanks to
Great to be
everybody
here.
else.
Better. Sending
Yes.
healing vibes.
Yeah, healing
Yes.
beams. All right, dropping off.
Enjoy
See
the
everybody
debate.
soon.
Later, Tater. You can follow the Plutopia News Network at plutopia.io. On Facebook, go to @Plutopia News. On Twitter, it's @Plutopia. This is the Plutopia News Network, 20 minutes into the future.